Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors and I hope you're having an awesome day. So today I've come down to see friend and talented craftsman Mick Rand. Mick, how are you doing?
I'm good, Zed. Many thanks for coming along today.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Now, if you're not familiar with Mick, Mick is a very talented carver with a speciality in kuksas and bowls. This video you're about to watch is part 2 of a 3-part series I've come down to film with Mick. In the previous video, we looked at a selection of kuksas and bowls that Mick has carved. Kuksas and bowls are typically Mick's speciality, and what we had a detailed look about the myriad of designs that Mick has played around with. Now in this part 2, what we're going to be looking at is an ingenious vise that Mick has built himself that's also portable, that he uses to carve kuksas and small bowls. What we're also going to be looking at in this video is a myriad of tools that Mick uses. So this is not so much a demonstration of how Mick actually carves a kuksa or a bowl, but it's more of an insight into how he goes about it, as well as a little bit of a demonstration in terms of how the vise actually works. So if you haven't seen the previous video, I'll put a link below to that. Be sure to check that out. And there's also a part 3 as well, where we look at an actual branding using a hot branding iron to how he actually marks the woodenware that he makes. So links below to all of those videos in this series, as well as that I will be putting a link below to Mick's Instagram, where you can see the myriad of things that he gets up to, as well as a link to his website where he sells his wares. So what we're going to do in this video, first and foremost, we're going to be looking at the vise, then we're going to be looking at the tools. So with your kind permission, Mick, I think we'll begin.
Very good, Zed. I look forward to showing it to you.
I look forward to sharing it with you guys as well. So guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video, where we're going to be looking at Mick Rand's Kuksa vise and hand tools. So Mick, would you like to talk us through the vise?
Yes, I'd be glad to, Zed. I expect many people who've seen your previous movies will know what a Kuksa vise is. It's basically a device which enables you to use a two-handed tool, because it clamps the workpiece between this block and this pin using these 2 wedges. Now, I've seen quite a few of these, but what I wanted to do in this particular instance was make a portable Kuksa vise, which I've done, and it's made out of an ash log that somebody gave me just before the lockdowns, and it's all demountable, and it's deliberately made lightweight. As you can see, it's kind of, I don't think you can see that okay, Zed, it's kind of, but it's sort of hollow underneath to make it lighter. So this whole thing only weighs a few kilos. When I first designed it, I had here these tapered holes and tapered tenons, and I hoped that would be enough, and I made these little pins here. Now these little pins fit onto this hoop. The only bit of the whole thing that wasn't made from the same ash log is this U-shape, which is a piece of green hazel which I bent round a former. So the pins, when it's being transported, all fit on there. Not really necessary, but I just wanted to do it. And once it's all taken apart, it does have its own very own bag. Portable Kuksa vise sack with a quite swanky toggle made out of a piece of antler. Now the trouble with that is it's actually jammed up. It doesn't slide up and down, so I'm going to have to redo it and drill those holes 1/2 mil wide, but it does all fit into that one sack. As I mentioned, originally I just wanted these tapered holes and tenons, and these pins would just hold the tenons in place like that. But unfortunately what I found with that was it was too wobbly. I didn't get enough accuracy on the holes and tenons, So then what I did was I had to add this bracing here with these nuts and bolts, which have got wing nuts on the back. Not quite what I wanted, but I always think if you only ever make something once, you know, all the faults are kind of built into it, which they kind of are in this case. It's still quite light though. Now I'm not going to dismantle the whole thing because it will just be hours and hours of me doing up nuts and bolts. But that's what happens. It all breaks down. The wedges fit underneath, and so does the pin. That fits underneath. So, how do we use a contraption like this? Well, as part of this movie, I've just done a sort of demo block, which is an oval-shaped bowl, which is going to have little feet on it here. Now, in the last film we mentioned that I started off with Kuksas, but then I kind of departed from tradition, as it were. It's a bit the same with my working methods, because what I like to do, what I always do, is I'll use a rip saw, which we can have a look at later, to carve out, to saw out, sorry, a rectangular block. This enables me to do kind of accurate marking, using a square, a protractor, a pair of compasses, so that when it comes to the underside, I've already got where this one will have feet, because I like doing feet on things, and it enables me to mark where the feet are accurately. These will be what, you know, when it's the right way, it will be resting on a surface, and all this will be carved off. But it does enable me to, using the rectangular block, enables me to draw these lines more accurately. And those are the kind of methods I've worked out myself. I know most Kuksa makers, and it's traditional with the Kuksa, is that you start clobbering it with an axe. Well, I happen to think an axe is a bit of a sort of caveman's tool. I like to use a series of saws, which we can have a look at later. So let's just get this the right way up. The workpiece butts against this block, which is fixed. Oh, by the way, the block is also hollow to make it lighter. And then a couple of wedges which just tap in. So that's your work block fixed in position. Now, this whole system, the Kuksa vise, the gouges, are based on something that was kind of pioneered or rediscovered by Alex Yerkes and Nick Westerman. And I probably mentioned in the last movie that it was when I first saw Alex Yerkes using this system that I got so keen on it. What I've got here are two swan-necked gouges where I've made covers for them and handles. I like these long handles. They're only crude, they only have to be. These scraps on here, that's just masking tape for when I'm sharpening them in a smaller vise at home. The Nick Westerman comes with a ferrule, and that's that one. The other one, that's made by Miguel Laranjeira, Besley Boo. Very, very good as well. What I've found is, I realised that these come in different profiles. Now, here, I'll use a Nick Westerman. When I get to these ends, I switch to the Miguel one because you can carve at a slightly narrower diameter. So let me just show that.
So the reason for the long handle, in case people are not aware, is for leverage, right?
It is for leverage, yeah. as you can see with my two hands, I'll be carving like this. Now, to repeat what I just said, if you make something once, as I've done here, any faults are built in. Now, what I didn't get here was a wide enough splay on the legs. So, it's all right carving that way and that way. When you're carving that way and that way, I have to kind of stick my leg against it. Now, if I were to make another Kuksa vise or a portable Kuksa vise, I would want to increase that splay on the legs considerably. But this certainly is usable. Now, when I'm starting off doing the rim, I want it accurate, so I quite often place it holding the bowl of the swan neck gouge in my hand. Whatever you do, don't start pushing down until your hand's out of the way. Then it's simply a question of carving off in the normal way, but with my leg braced against it. And obviously what I'll do is gradually go around the whole of the rim of this bowl, and with these dimensions I should be able to reach the middle because it's narrow. I have to say the swan neck gouge is a really pleasing tool to use. It's a pleasure to use. I have started this one off using the wood I've removed here is removed using an ordinary straight gouge with the mallet there, which is not as fun as doing this.
So basically, no matter what tool you're using this vise to clamp the piece in place, and then
that's it. Yeah, yeah. As I say, the whole thing is a bit lightweight. What I hope to do with this in the future is go around to local events, and the whole point about the portability of it is that I can literally get it on the bus. I don't drive, and it means I don't have to beg lifts off people. So yeah, not perfect, but for demonstration purposes quite adequate. I do work fairly slowly. You see Alex Yerkes doing this, he'd be whizzing round, he probably have this finished by now. Again, you can see, as with my working method, the saw and so on, I mean, I'm not at all close to a Kuksa shape here, but I do like these ovals. Yeah, I like carving little oval bowls. I've done a few. Generally what I would do was work and work and work around, taking a little bit off at a time. As I said, with this particular block, when I get to here, I'll switch to the Miguel one, which is a slightly narrower diameter, like that. They both are very good tools indeed.
So Mick, we're looking at your tools now. Where would you like to start off?
Well, I'll start off by something I just mentioned when we were looking at the Kuksa vise, which is the block. And rather than get a rough piece of wood and start carving the bowl and then clonk it with an axe, I do like to saw out because of that thing I mentioned about accurate marking. And to achieve that rectangular block, I'll use a saw like this allotment, which is really quite stupendous. One of the things people aren't very good at nowadays is making hand rip saws. They're not really made, they're all kind of general purpose, like Spear and Jackson Predators I use. They're pretty good. I've just got this one from Amazon, of all people. allotment Aggressive, and it's a superb saw, particularly for cutting out the blocks. So I'll start with that. Then I mentioned this one will have feet. When I come to start sawing that out, I'll switch to a finer tooth saw. Now I think these are called Ryobi, so the famous Japanese saws which work on the pull stroke. And in this particular case, I'll take these bits of placky off, you'll be able to see. The bigger teeth are for rip sawing, the smaller teeth for cross cutting. Quite often it's useful to use the rip saw teeth for cross cutting as well, just works more quickly. And they are very, very good indeed for when I start sawing the outside, lines on the outside. I'm not going to start doing it now because I have to put it back in the Kuksa vise, but they're very, very handy indeed, the Japanese saws. And I've got ones with various sizes of teeth, till you get down to this funny thing, which it's known as the gentleman's saw. Tiny, tiny teeth. I don't know how many teeth per inch, you might say it on there. But that's what they call it in Japan, gentleman's saw. So it's quite obvious that in Japan, gentlemen weren't actually going to do any serious work. But it's brilliant for finishing off. I mean, with these tiny, tiny teeth, you really get quite a smooth finish. So that's what I do. I make the bowl first. Sorry, I cut out the block first, I do the bowl, then I start sawing the outside. This is another Japanese tool, which is very useful, and yet it's a rasp, Shinto, made in Japan. And it's almost like, it's very, very good. These teeth here are like little tiny chisels, you know, and you can soon whiz a load off with that. Though I won't show you that now again because the block's not in the vise. Next up, well, we've already seen me using these swan neck gouges, which are lovely tools to use. All I'll show you here is, as so often with the knife blades, often you just buy the metal part and you make your own handle, as I've done here, and your own cover, really for kind of safety purposes and protect the edge of the tool. Most of these covers I've made with a bit of spalted sycamore and a bit of anything, lime wood probably, and I have a pin. Now the pin again is carved out of ebony wood, a bit of old piano sharp off a piano, that fits in there like that. And a lot of these are the same. The handles and the covers are the same. There's a similar one here. This is a great old tool, which I actually bought this one on eBay. And this is made by Addis. It's a Sheffield tool. So made by Addis. I doubt if it's I doubt if they're still made now. It's got some stamps on it. 10 prize medals, can't be bad. What I like about this one is it's got such an amazing bowl shape here. It had been used when I bought it. It took me a long time to sharpen that one, just by hand, using the strop and slip and slip set. It's tricky tongue twister for you.
Say that 3 times in a row.
It's just strawberry slip. So I just made a cover for that one. It came with that handle. I feel this one, it's actually designed to be used with a mallet or a beetle. Unlike this one, which I've just acquired, which is a superb, hence Coulson. And I'm just starting to experiment using this one to carve bigger bowls. Now, it's not really designed to be clonked with a mallet. Use it like that. Then we come on to knives. Well, I'll start with these two. Some people will recognise this. It's a classic Nick Westerman spoon knife, and it's absolutely superb. It's probably one of the most versatile blade tools I've got, and it can certainly reach into awkward corners in Kuksa bowls, as well as carving spoons, which is what it's originally intended for. So there's that one. Again, I've made the handle and the cover. I'd run out of that spalted sycamore, so I've used a little bit of scrap burr I had left over. This one is made by Adam Ashworth. This part of the blade I find extremely useful, and if you're carving a bowl that's sort of wider than normal, you can use that part to kind of reach into the middle of the bowl when your hands are on the outside. These are just friction fits, won't fall off. Similar, that's a Dave Cockcroft, that's a very useful one. Slightly similar to that of Ashworth, but a bit smaller. Somehow when I made the cover I didn't quite get down to here. But that's useful. This one is a Sean Hellman chip carving knife. No, it isn't. That is a Nick Westerman mini hook knife. You could say it's designed for getting in awkward corners, but actually if you're carving the outside of a bowl, you can whiz off a whole load of material with that quite quickly. It will make obviously U-shaped gouges in your workpiece, but then you reach for your other Nick Westerman, which is a straight bladed knife, which is probably the most useful one of all, and you can sort of join the dots that you've made with this one by carving down to the bottom of the U-shaped channels that you've made in the wood. So that's almost like your finishing cuts. My mistake earlier, this is in fact the Sean Hellman chip carver. Crikey, it's filthy, should have cleaned that off. Yes, it's for chip carving. I haven't done much chip carving, but because it's a real obtuse angle on that bevel, it means you can use the tip and you can get right into some awkward corners without risking damaging the tip, which with some of these other blades that's best avoided. With these really thin ones you can break the tip off, as I've done loads of times. Again, this is a small curved blade, which you can use in certain circumstances. Actually, when I'm carving a piece, I've got all these knives laid out, and I'll reach for a particular blade depending on what exactly I'm trying to do. and I've kind of got most of them. Occasionally you might use a spoke shave or a draw knife. This is an all metal draw knife that can be quite handy, made by Leyland Stone in America. Very, very neat, certainly sharp enough, and it comes with this superb cover. I've found that I probably don't use this quite as much as I thought I might when I bought it. But for instance, if you're doing spoons and you're using a shave horse, that would be very useful for doing the handle. Now, yeah, an old rough old gouge. This was Ashley Isles. I've had these for years. This is about the third handle I've put on it. Afraid the ferrule's broken. That was out of an old oak table leg. But you know, it still can be useful in certain circumstances. Lastly, I've got this wonderful little thing which is made by Slil Sensor in Israel, who's a superb craft blacksmith and kind of a scientist as well. Now that, sometimes when you're carving a deep curve or a curve that's going against the grain of the wood, this little blade can get you out of an awkward corner. So I don't use it very often, but when I do, it's really handy. I didn't make the cover or the handle, it came with it.
So collectively then, these are the tools that you're using in your process for making kuksas and bowls?
Yeah, what you see here, Zed, with the full range is, this is pretty much all that I use at the moment. And I always think, you know, I'll get a new blade and I think, yeah, I've got enough blades now. But of course there's always another one.
I say, it's all part of the research process, Mick.
It is, yeah.
Acquiring new blades, knives, axes.
And of course, one thing I love about the carving itself is you never stop learning. And there's always something new to learn, and there's always another blade to get hold of as well. Next up, I think it's a Lee Stoffer Scorp. But I'm not in a rush. I can wait.
So there you have it, my friends. That is a wrap for this video. Mick, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Zed, for giving me the chance to show my working methods and tools there.
It was a really good video in terms of the insights that I also got as well while I was filming. Like I said at the very beginning of this video, it's more of a show and tell to look at Mick's vice in action, as well as the tools that he uses. It's more of a kind of inspiration for you guys watching this video, for any ideas you may want to kind of take on board from this video. And would it kind of be right in saying that even with the tools and whatnot, it was a work in progress for you in terms of acquiring tools to see what worked for you, what didn't?
Oh yeah, very much so. Zed, ever since I started carving kuksas and bowls, which, as I mentioned, has only been the last sort of 4 or 5 years, you learn something at every stage. And yeah, you do tend to acquire a new blade at every stage as well. It means you can do more within the limits of the material itself, what you can do with wood.
And the kind of suggestion, if I may as well, is especially if you're starting out in kuksa carving, bowl carving, even spoon carving, or whatever carving in general, is I know when you see people like Mick and others, especially others that I've documented on my channel, and you see the myriad of tools that they have, always appreciate that those have taken time to acquire. When you're starting out, you don't need anywhere near that amount, you know. A couple of tools, 2 or 3 basic tools, and that's more than suffice in terms of kind of getting on with bowl carving, kuksa carving, spoon carving, etc. So always remember that. I know when I started out, I see people with really immaculate collections and I'm like, envy. You know I'm just like, wow, you know. So I don't want you to watch this video and think, oh gosh, you know, that you need to acquire all the tools that Mick showed. Not in the slightest. Like Mick has just said, it's taken time to acquire those as well as put those to use. Because one thing you're going to find as well, and no doubt you found this, Mick, is you acquire a tool thinking, yeah, you know, I really, really need this. But then when you actually get it, you realise with certain tools, and once again, it's all personal preference, you realise that actually it's maybe not best suited for what it is that you want.
That's definitely the case then. Obviously, you would start off simple, and then as you explore your own woodworking, develop your skills, then you might want to acquire a new blade. You'll get ideas from different people. The main thing to emphasize is whatever tools you acquire, keep them sharp, and that is another skill you need to big up as you go.
One final thing, and this is more of a recommendation that I always give people in private, and that is when it comes to acquiring tools, if you're able to, is actually be able to meet up with people that already have the tools that you're looking to acquire. And that way you can see things up close and personal, obviously with permission from whoever tools they belong to maybe even just try them out, and you can get a good feel for how the tool works. And it's a fantastic way of actually seeing things and also being able to get the insights and experiences of the person that belongs to say, well, did you enjoy this tool? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And that's a great, great help before you actually go out and make the purchase. Once again, I know it's not possible for everyone to do, but if that's possible for you to do, then I would highly recommend you do that. It saves you a lot of time and hassle, because obviously you can see photos online and videos online, but nothing beats seeing the tool in person and especially being able to use it. Would you say you found that as well, like especially when you attend meetups, to see other people that have certain tools that you don't have and to have a little go?
Yeah, that's certainly the case, Ed, because it's mainly through meeting other people that I've discovered new tools. Starting right when I began doing Kuksa, just seeing Alex and his demo of the swan neck gouge. I've never even seen a swan neck gouge before that. All the way through the whole range of tools. Sean Hellman told me, you know, you're carving off the back of your spoon, use a straight blade, you get flatter cuts. And as you go, you can pick up all kinds of hints and tips like that. And yeah, they do become part of your own repertoire, but it's seeing them, people using them is very, very helpful.
So guys, there you go. That is a wrap for this second video in a 3-part series. So once again, to do a final recap, we have done a previous video in this series where we looked at a selection of Kuksas and bowls that Mick has carved. In this video, obviously, we looked at the vice and tools. In the third video, what we're going to be looking at is using a hot branding iron to actually brand a maker's mark onto woodenware. So links to the other videos down below in this series. And a final reminder, I'll put a link below to Mick's website. You can check out the items that he has for sale, as well as a link to his Instagram, where you can check out a myriad of his work. And if you have any questions or queries whatsoever, is Instagram the best place for people to contact you?
Yep, Instagram's very good, Zed, and I'll be always glad to speak to anybody on there. Yeah, I don't like to say no.
He's too polite, Mick. So he's always very, very helpful. So if you have any questions or queries regarding the tools that have been shown in this video, be sure to hit Mick up on Instagram. So like I said, links to everything down below. Mick, a sincere thank you once again.
Yep, thank you, Zed.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy the other videos in this series I filmed with Mick. And as always, I hope whatever you're doing, you have a blessed day, a blessed week ahead. For myself, Zed Outdoors, and Mick Rand, peace out.